Every now and then I like to create some heatless curls, and this time I decided to share the process. I coiled my hair around a scarf for 2 nights. Of course, there can be a few knots, so be patient with this part of the process. Once my hair is freed from the scarf, I run my fingers through the curls and separate them where they naturally want to fall. They're quite tight and bouncy to begin with, but we'll play with that as we go. The first makeup look will only be using eyeshadow from one palette. I began with the ivory colour over the whole lid, then added a light peachy brown over the crease. Don't worry about the mess because next I blended the two colours together to soften the edges across the crease and lid. The next shade is a soft brown, which I'm applying to the crease line and outer third of the eyelid. Again, I blended this in, but only along the crease and outer edge of the eyelid. Quick check to make sure it's looking even enough. The darkest brown in the palette is going to add a little definition to the outer corner. I'm applying this to the outer half of the lash line and only just into the crease. Not much, just a tiny smudge. Wipe any fallen powder from your cheeks, then we're done for makeup. I wanted to keep this look pretty simple, a nice floral shirt and no extra styling for the hair, other than freeing up some more curls and combing through with my fingers. Gonna let those wild curls work their magic. I call this look Woman Living Her Best Life in the Italian Countryside. Whoops, don't mind the tag. I'm pinning some hair back to keep it out of the way for the next look. I'm going to be using the same ivory base again, but I don't want the browns, so wiping them all off with some makeup remover. Starting with the ivory base over the lid. Don't mind me. We're going to add a bold red on the inner 2/3 of the upper lash line and create wings with some black eyeshadow from the outer third of the lid. Just a mini wing for this look. Make sure it's even enough. Amazing how much sass builds up when I apply wings. Anyone else get that? Then adding some dark brown eye pencil to define the wing a little more. Not a pitch black wing like a cat eye, but a little more subtle. And I've got my most vintage rockabilly pin-up shirt on. For the hair, I'm pinning back curls, each overlapping the pin of the previous one. Pulling these out a little as I go to make them sit where I want. Also pulling out some little pieces to frame my face. I'm still separating the curls, they keep trying to cling together again. Next, I separated a piece to make a pin curl, wrapping around my fingers, then pinning in place just behind my ear over the previous bobby pin. I deliberately left the ends of the pin curl out to leave a little curly feature here. You'll see these better later. You can stop here with a one-sided look, which looks very cute, but I repeated the process on the other side. Making sure they're relatively even. Separating a piece to frame my face. And curling another pin curl on the other side, again leaving the end free for a nice touch, especially when the rest of my hair is almost all one length. Again, this looks adorable, but I'm going to add a headscarf to create a half updo with a bow. I separated out a large portion behind each ear and tied a simple bow. You can play around with this until it sits nice, but I was on the clock. And that's the second look. This one is called Young Woman at Her First Pin-Up Photo Shoot. I was sad to change out of this look. I had a lot of fun dressed like this. So much so, I forgot to take photos. But anyway, on to the next look. I took all the pins out and fluffed the curls again for the next hairstyle. I deliberated what the next eye makeup would be and decided to build on this one rather than wipe anything off. I wanted to create a soft pink smoky eye, but I accidentally used a darker pink on the second eye. You can see me realizing my mistake right here. I tried to wipe it off, but the damage was done. I did what I could to recover and applied more of the light pink to both eyes on the whole top lid and along the lower lash line. I patted some of the ivory again on the inner corner and blended it into the first lighter pink colour. On the outer half of the eyelid, I used the darker pink. I never intended the pink to get this dark, but since I'd already spoiled the softer colour, I just rolled with it. So darker pink on the outer top lid and outer half of the lower lash line. Next, I added some black eyeshadow on the outer third of the lid and lower lash line for a smoky corner. I didn't bother using a fresh brush to keep mixing the colours. I patted more black to keep darkening the colour and blended into the pink. Laughing at myself here because I had the thought, what if someone knocked on the door right now? Glitter! This colour worked perfectly because of the pink and darker shades in the glitter itself. I packed this onto the middle of the eyelid where the darker pink blended into the black and lighter pink, then cleaned up the top edge with the same ivory colour. Don't worry, I did blend this after checking my makeup in the full mirror. Using a compact mirror is a little hard to get a decent idea of balance. I wiped away stray glitter and added mascara. I started the next hairstyle by pinning the hair either side of my parting, crossed over the top of my head. I loved how this looked with all the wild curls. It reminded me of Sophie on her hen's night in the first Mamma Mia movie. You could stop here, but I decided to keep going for a full updo. I pinned back the rest of my hair, framing my face. This style is starting to look really 80s to me, which is also a lot of fun, but I kept going and gathered all my hair right on top where the bobby pins were sitting and tied it with a scrunchie. You can see the battle against these curls, my gosh, look at that strain on my face. I kept fiddling with the curls until they were resting where I wanted them, pulling and pushing and begging. Then I separated a piece to wrap around the scrunchie and pinned this in place. Some more fiddling. I pushed the scrunchie further forward and pinned behind it to make it sit right on top. The finishing touch was pulling some baby hairs to frame my face and pulling the pinned curls until they sat up a bit more in the front. This was intended to be a soft grungy look, but I'm calling it a night at the discotheque. I'm not mad. So there you are, 3 15-minute looks with heatless curls. Low effort, as you can tell, but a lot of fun. And here's some bloopers to finish up. Fresh brush. I forgot to take photos of the second look.